Winter squashes. They're naturally sweet to the taste. They feed and nurture your spleen, pancreas, and stomach. They're high in vitamin A, vitamin C, and potassium. And they help to boost your immunity. So they are excellent food to eat at this time of the year. Welcome to Healthy Cooking with Val. Hi, I'm Chef Valerie Wilson. Look at all these beautiful winter squashes. One of my favorite foods. They're so sweet and versatile, and each one has its own different taste and texture. So let's take a minute and go through each one. Probably the one that you're most familiar with is the butternut squash. Now the butternut squash, the skin is nice and soft, so we can always remember to eat the skin too. And that's very important because most of the vitamins and minerals are located right underneath the skin. Now most people, when it comes to winter squashes, they bake them in the oven, and that's very simple to do. You just cut the squash in half and then place it flat side down on a cookie sheet and bake it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 1 hour until it's fork tender. The butternut squash is nice and sweet, and it also works really good if you cut it up in little cubes. It tastes really good cooked with beans. You can also cook it with brown rice, and it also tastes really good in soups. Now the next squash that's very, very sweet is what's called kabocha or buttercup squash. This is one of the sweetest squashes there is. And this skin is very soft too, so you can eat that. My favorite way to use the kabocha squash, again, is to put it in soup, especially miso soup. It really adds a delicious sweet broth to your soup. Now another squash that is very beautiful is the dumpling squash. See how it's shaped? This one works really good if you cut it in half and bake it, and then you stuff it, because it's very pretty. But the skin on this squash tends to be a little tough, so you may not be able to eat the skin on this one. Now an interesting squash is the spaghetti squash, named because you can use this in the place of spaghetti. Now it's yellow on the outside, you see how that is, and it's a relatively big squash, so you cut it in half like this, face down, bake it in the oven, and when it gets done, this is what it looks like. You take a fork and you start pulling the squash with the fork, and look at that. It looks just like spaghetti. You can do something as simple as just putting a little olive oil and sea salt on it. It tastes really good like that. But you can also put your favorite sauce over there. Some people like tomato sauce. Some people like a vegetable sauce. Very, very delicious. And then we have the acorn squash. This is a really pretty and decorative squash too. You see how pretty it is? This one is not as sweet as the other ones. But again, it tastes really good, just baked in the oven. You can put it in soups. And again, you may not have thought of this, but cut it up in little squares and put it with beans. Very, very good. Now the skin on here is soft enough to eat too. One of the best recipes in my cookbook, Perceptions in Healthy Cooking, which you can get on my website, macroval.com, is squash rings. This is what they look like when they're done. Very, very simple. You just take olive oil and tamari, put them in a bowl together and whisk them up, and then you dip thin slices of the acorn squash in there, lay them on a cookie sheet, 350 degrees, about 5 minutes on one side, flip them over, and then about 7 minutes on the other side. They get caramelized, and it brings out the sweetness of the squash, makes them even better. Now, I've saved the best for last. Delicata squash. Go to the supermarket and buy this one. You will be so happy. Now, in the store, they may call it dumpling squash. They may call it sweet potato squash, but this is a delicata squash. This squash is only available for a few months, so make sure you get it. My all-time favorite. It is the sweetest of all the winter squashes and the most delicious. Bake it in the oven, just like this. And make sure you let it caramelize around the edges. It's extra, extra sweet. This one is so soft, it melts in your mouth like butter. It is so delicious. So next time you go to the store, make sure that you get some of these winter squashes. They are fantastic for your body, but they're also fantastic for your taste buds. Remember to visit my Facebook page, MacroVal Food, and don't forget to pick up a copy of my book, Perceptions in Healthy Cooking, available on my website, macroval.com. Remember, your journey to eating healthy begins with one small step. Let's make that small step some winter squashes. Mmm.